Welcome back to Durham Election 2010 with our guest tonight, and Doug Anderson and I here. You can go to durhamelection2010.ca and be able to see some of the videos or what we're doing right here. Doug, we were talking about land development, an industry and bringing more in. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, this is something that's come up on every one of these shows we've done is the matter about we need more economic development because that'll ease the tax burden on the residents, etc. But you know, you go through any industrial park throughout Durham region and they're half empty, and they have been for 20, 30 years. I mean, there's no lack of industrial space. And yet, you know, one of the things that House comes out is everyone wants the 407 because, hey, that's going to bring in industry. And I'm thinking, hey, you got all this space near the 401, and yet you want to bring the 407 in so that we have more space that's near the 407. It doesn't make much sense. Any comments that basically how are you going to bring this industry into Durham region?
Well, I got some input on that.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so you give them incentives to bring their industry here, and whether it be a sort of an incentive where it's implemented over a certain period of time, in maybe a contractual agreement with the industry, between the town or the city and the industry. So for instance, you have a certain percentage of taxes that they're coming in at, that they're paying, let's say, as opposed to somewhere else where they're going to be paying more, and gradually implement it. And then at the end of that stint, you're vigorously trying to draw in other industry at the same time while you got that industry on a somewhat of a lease on taxes.
All right, we'll go ahead. Ian?
Yeah. Well, you know, other municipalities are able to do that. I mean, Vaughan's certainly been able to do it. Oakville's been able to do it.
Anything east of Yonge Street?
Yes. And what do they know we don't know? You know, someone once said many times an idea grows better when transplanted into another mind. We don't have to reinvent things completely. Let's take a look at what they did that was successful. We can maybe improve upon it a little bit. We can maybe change it a little bit for today's environment and today's finances. But we don't have to invent something completely new. But we can bring industry, and if we can do it in other areas in Canada, we can do it here. I'm involved right now in looking for industrial space that would actually result in about 400 jobs. This was pre the election. Okay.
What response have you had from the local municipality?
Now, in fairness, before I started running, in the election, I talked to one person in Pickering, didn't get much response. But I have to be fair. I didn't go looking for space in Pickering because the other end of that partnership said, no, we've got to do this down in the US. That's where the real incentives lie.
Right.
Now. Now I'm running in this election. You can bet your booty I'm not going to accept that. But the fact of the matter is there are greater incentives in other places.
Well, we have an economic development branch, Durham region-wide,
right.
And if part of the economic development is crafting deals to attract people in here to bring employment, we have certainly failed on that, because if the U.S. can attract them, why can't we be as sexy?
Exactly.
Why can't we be as sexy?
We should be sexier because the Canadian dollar, you know, like right now, it's a poor reflection of that. But in the past, we've had opportunity.
Not only do we have an economic development department Durham region-wide, we have an economic development department in every single municipality as well. So I mean, basically, you've got people are trying to do this. Whether maybe their hands are tied, I don't know. But frankly, maybe.
Yeah, I think the question is really quite broad, and I don't think there's any simplistic answer to attracting industry. But you know, very basic in Oshawa, we have the second highest industrial commercial rate in the GTA, and certainly that provides some discouragement for people to come there. You know, we have a university, and it's a high-tech university, and as of this point in time, the powers that be have not zoned any land around that university as a high-tech industrial zone to take advantage of those professors who are entrepreneurial and also the highly trained students who could get work experience in these. You know, that should be right around the university, and they haven't done that. Another thing to attract high caliber talent is the whole cultural life of a community. And I'm really quite interested in this because I paint and I carve and I sketch and I write stories and do all these kinds of things. And cultural life is important. And we have to improve that in Oshawa.
Yeah, we want to put how do we bring industry? I mean, so I think you've all given a great example about what you would think about doing in just bring industry.
Well, one thing we could do
is
maybe take a little bit of the focus off these new developments of housing, and maybe concentrate a little bit harder on the industry. Pickering is known for that. They want these developments because it's a creature of that province's Places to Grow Act, and they are zoned for that particular developments to go in, and the province pushes for the municipality to do that, because the municipality, and I've heard it in the past, is a creature, like it has to be, they have to listen to the provincial government. And it is mandated that way, even in the acts. But what I'm saying is, I don't believe in that.
You know what's really interesting about that is that, yes, you understand that, but what most of the public doesn't know, that you, as municipal politicians, are really that sometimes hamstrung by the province. They have all been very quiet about it and say, well, the province does this. When's the last time that a council stood up, Doug? Can you think of in history where a council stood up and said, you know what, on some, they all stood up en masse and said, you know what, the province is screwing us into the ground.
Yeah, actually it happens quite regularly. The only trouble is it happens in the wrong places. It happens in places where basically they're grandstanding rather than, and they'll say, oh, we're opposed to this development because we know that the Ontario Municipal Board is going to approve it.
When's the last time? But the province has been writing the orders for most of the municipalities for a long time, and most of the public does not understand if you got elected, would you just stand up and go?
Wait a minute.
No. The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
The people.
Do the people in city council today actually understand what they have to do? Or have they been politicians too long?
But I'm not just talking about city council. City council is one thing, and I can totally understand that. I'm talking about that I believe that people can stop the province. They did it with the airport lands.
But you know what?
You know what I'm saying? How did they do that?
Go ahead, Bill.
The province is not the corporation that's developing industry into Oshawa. You know, that's the milieu around Oshawa, the vision of the city, the Durham Region planning that sets apart, you know, in our instance, in Oshawa, a high-tech industrial park. And really, that's not the province. You know, we need some vision. What's happening in Oshawa?
You mean to tell me? Hang on a second. Are you telling me that municipally that you have more power and the province isn't actually mandating you to do stuff that you have no control over?
No. We're a creature of the province.
I think if you look at a lot of the initiatives that are happening in North America, outside of Canada as well, an awful lot of the initiatives. Just look at the green space. An awful lot of those initiatives are coming from municipalities. They're not coming from federal government. They're not coming from provincial government.
My point is, since we have no incumbents coming here, I'm going to say this, that I, for one, in the media, and I've been doing this for 10 years, have never seen an en masse group of the politicians stand up and say, we're not taking this from the province, except when they know that the OMB's already got it tied up. They haven't stood up and say, take it back.
But wait a minute, can I talk about that OMB for a second? Yeah. That OMB, I have some experience with the OMB as well. Not necessarily participating in the hearings, but actually being present at them. And I can tell you, if something is, as a matter of fact, and it can be proven that it is supposed to be a certain way, that ruling will not be in the favor of, you know, as you say, the province. Even if that is a creature of the province. As long as the facts stand alone.
All right, Bill.
Yeah, Garth, I was getting into the fact of a vision to look forward. And what happens in Oshawa, you know, we have an automotive history. And it seems that the council is always looking over their shoulder, looking at that past and trying to preserve it. And what's going to happen, you know, I can remember when I was lecturing in China at a university class, I said, you know, you people have a great history and you're so proud of your history. And I said, you know, if you walk forward looking over your shoulder, pretty soon you're going to run into a brick wall. And I think in Oshawa, in many ways, we've run into that brick wall where we're looking at the past, trying to preserve it without looking to the future. And I think we have to be visionaries. And you know, it's the council itself that sets the policy. You know, they don't do all the technical work and so on, but they set the policy, and they need some members of council that have a forward-looking vision.
Yeah, but, you know, listen. Visionary is one thing. Here and now is another. Let's make the here and now become the vision. That's all I got to say.
We're going to go off to break. We're going to come back with one final question with Doug Anderson. And this great, by the way, you are some of the most animated group we've had here so far, and I appreciate it because it gives for a lively discussion, which is great.
And we haven't argued, and we're running against one another.
No, we're not arguing. We're not arguing. You know,
and we're all pulling for Oshawa.
That's right. That's right. But listen. But not to undermine you. Not to undermine you. I just want to say that vision, that's fabulous. But let's concentrate on the here and now. Here's where we are, and tomorrow is where we're going to be. But let's worry about 20 years and 30 years down the line another time.
No, you have to.
You're heading toward that.
Hey, Bill, should there have been a performance agreement at the GM Center before they did this?
There was no planning.
Just go ahead and cut us off. We're fine.